But I know that whenever I recommend to a friend of mine, oh, you should write a blog or something, they always think that it's going to end up at the bottom of the digital scrap heap, or that they'll be competing against, say, the crazy cat lady. I'm wondering, like, what would you say to people who are usually kind of scared away from the entire prospect by thinking that no one's going to look at it at all?
Well, I think the number one thing to remember is blogging is an ego sport. If you don't think you've got something interesting to say, then don't participate. Don't add to the conversation. Maybe comments is the place for you to add your occasional 2 cents. If you think you've got something that's worth saying, and if you think that somebody should actually listen to you, then get off your ass and do it. And I think it's really just that simple, because it's push button, it's writing. If you can write and you can type and you can click publish, by God, you've got a blog now. Will you be the most popular blogger overnight? Probably not. I'm still not, and I've been working at this for a good several years now. But I think, like with anything, it's practice makes perfect. Content is king. You know, if you've got something that's worth saying, people are going to read it, and the perseverance of being able to actually stick with it. Are you shopping your stuff around? Are you sending to other bloggers that would get you more attention? Are you submitting guest posts to bigger sites than yours? Are you kind of hanging out with the crazy cat lady?
Another area of interest in particular has to do with transgender issues, just because it seems to be a sort of politically incorrect minefield where someone can easily get taken down, as you were talking about. I'm wondering, like, how do you think someone is able to navigate that? Because I actually think that a lot of the backlash that would-be writers face because of it keeps them from even covering the issues whatsoever.
Well, I think, but at the same time, I worry a little bit about the framing of that question, because I think it's awfully easy, and I know we've had several posts on Politico about that, trans anger and how I didn't say something right, so you got angry with me, and now you've shut down the discussion because you're just yelling at me. Right. But I think if we stop and remember 10 years ago where LGBT rights were and gay rights, there's a reason that GLAAD's heyday was 10 years ago, and that was because they were having to constantly pick at. That wasn't really right on how you're going to say that. You're not addressing our issues correctly. And we've kind of made it over the hill now for gay issues and for lesbian issues, and we're coming up awfully close to mounding the hill now for bi issues. We just haven't made it there yet for trans issues. And I don't think that it's so much that, whatever you say you're going to get jumped on, as take a few minutes and educate yourself. It's what we expected the mainstream media to do. So, there is something to be said for, even just going to Bilerico, if you read through a few trans posts on Bilerico, you've got at least a pretty good idea of some do's and don'ts.
Right. You talked a little bit about the National Equality March and how at first you didn't think it was a great idea, but later you were persuaded. I'm kind of wondering both what persuaded you and how you would respond to some critics who say that marriage equality shouldn't really be at the forefront of gay issues.
Well, I would agree wholeheartedly that marriage equality shouldn't be. I think that was the point of the National Equality March. And one of my big concerns originally was that it was only going to focus on marriage equality. And after talking to Kip Williams and getting a more fleshed out idea of what it was that they were actually trying to accomplish, and realizing that they were after full federal equality, period. And that isn't just marriage equality, that's also, employment rights and housing and it's, public accommodations, hate crimes, the whole agenda. Well, I think that's something that I can support. I come from Indiana. I used to laugh and say that until hate crimes passed, the last positive LGBT piece of legislation that affected Indiana was the repeal of the sodomy laws. When hate crimes passed at a federal level, we finally got a benefit again. It won't be until the Employment Non-Discrimination Act happens that we'll actually have protections in my home state not to get fired just because of who you love.
Right.
So marriage equality, not so high on my list of priorities. So I think what changed my mind was that they were focusing on a bigger picture, and that is that full federal equality is what is necessary for LGBT people to have full civil rights. We can't just, I don't know that we can just keep piecemealing it, we got this little piece and we got this. Look at INDA. INDA was supposed to have been passed out of markup in the House and gone through the Senate. It was low-hanging fruit, we were told. We still don't have it. Now it looks like there's going to be a dust-up over the trans language, Now, and if we keep letting them go, something is going to get picked out of here and picked out of there. Remember, they wanted to remove trans folk the last time.
Right.
Well, how do we bring all of this together and just say, no, enough? We should have employment rights. We should be able to keep our jobs, keep our children, be able to get married. It all flows together. And I think that's what it has to be. I think a lot of times that and we were talking in this session about, you know, some of the gay orgs not quite getting the power of social media and where the online world is. And I think that's one thing that they grasped fully and they used to their advantage in a way that has not been seen in LGBT organizing up till now. And I think they've really set a really high bar. And I think we're going to be watching a lot of gay ink kind of struggle to reach that bar for a long time. The question becomes, I think, almost more than, you know, did the march even accomplish anything, is can we find a way to bring all of the grassroots activists and the gay inks folks together into some sort of, you know, mind meld, or, you know, at least some cognizant realization that we're all on the same team. Maybe we could start listening to each other and not just be so, you know, coming from the top and flowing down. Maybe we could start working like a real movement.
Right. Cool. I want to thank you for your time, Bill.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely.